Chapter 11. A calm, relaxing day was shattered by a chorus of whoops and cackles. With each holler, reverberations would ring throughout the cave. Enshli and Pyru were both inside, lounging near the fire. The rest had gone off to hunt, the mother included. The whole afternoon was dedicated to some father-son time. Pyru paid no attention to these noises and began to fiddle with a wooden rod nearby. But Enshli froze. Those were not the joyous laughter of a fellow tribesman. There were sounds of impending danger, tainted more so with the putrid stench of gruesome death. These were the guffaws of another apex predator, a cave hyena. Soundlessly, Enshli crept to the entrance of the cave to see what exactly was going on. He made an extra effort to not attract any attention to himself, or it would spell disaster. Crouching, he scanned the perimeter and immediately spotted the chilling troop. At first sight, you would think that these cave hyenas weren't that much different to their modern-day relatives. But on closer inspection, you can see the variations. They were bulkier, weighing around 88 kilograms, or 194 pounds. They had longer limbs and a thicker fur to insulate themselves from the frost. Each one of them was as deadly as ever, and when in a pack, this would exponentially grow. There were 8 hyenas in total, in a clearing just 10 meters away. For now, they didn't seem interested in Neanderthal meat and were instead ganging up on something else. The hapless prey was a tuft of brown and was slightly smaller than its attackers. It yapped and wailed, and its paws shuffled nervously as it spun around searching for help. It was a bear cub. Not just of any bear, but of a cave bear. Normally, these monstrous beings could reach 2 meters or 6.6 feet, but this was even less than half of that. It was still a youngling, after all. The cave hyenas bashed their fangs and laughed even harder. Their snickers started to hurt Enshli's ears. Some of them went into a crouching position, preparing to deliver the first strike. The more it went on, the more panic-stricken the cub looked. Its yips got louder as it screamed for help. Enshli felt a twinge in his heart, but this was the way of the forest. Even if he rushed out, he would just end up as an appetizer for the bloodthirsty bunch. The attack commenced without warning. The hyenas rushed forward with crooked smiles and jaws spread wide open, hungry for a mouthful of gamey flesh. The bear cub tried to make itself big in a final attempt to scare off the aggressors. All of a sudden, a dark shadow loomed over all. A pair of piercing eyes emerged from the dimly lit thickets. This figure was massive. Standing up on its hind legs, it dwarfed Enshli and every creature around it. As it opened its mouth, a deafening roar shook the very ground. Seething with absolute rage, it burst onto the scene, an unhinged expression hanging on its snout. The mother bear had arrived. The cave hyenas stopped in their tracks. They had not signed up for this. What they thought was an easy snag was now a raving, foaming monstrosity. But did they just turn tail and dart off? Certainly not. They had strength in numbers, and this gave them a boost of confidence. Taking down Cave Bear was still within the realm of possibility. Driven on by the lust of battle, they shook off the initial shock and turned their attention towards the mother bear. It was a terrible fight. Claws and teeth clashed against each other. The mother bear swung her massive forearms and everything that was caught in their path was flung off effortlessly. The cave hyenas raked and bit in unison, and as the brawl went on, pools of nauseating crimson decorated her back. The mother bear retaliated in crushing fashion, snapping wildly at the hyenas. Most of her charms were met with nothing but thin air. For the ones that met their mark, they left nothing but pure devastation. Any hyena that suffered this misfortune let out blood-curdling shrieks, and no matter how they struggled, the mother bear would not let go until its once vigorous body lay soft and limp. With time, the hyenas dwindled in number. A few of their companions littered the ground in a muddy, sanguineous puddle of blood. By now, they were not so sure of their chances, and their aggression had been completely replaced by fear. One by one, they retreated, racing off as far as their legs could take them. Enshli sighed a breath of relief. That was intense. He looked around once more, trying to see whether the cub was safe and sound. But he couldn't find it. Not here, not there, not anywhere. It was gone. Poof. Nowhere to be seen. Not far away, a whimper emerged from inside the cave. Enshli's head turned towards the noise. It was a cub. It had snuck out in the midst of war and had decided to hide here. But that wasn't just it. Pyru stood directly in front, ruffling its fur with his fingers and beaming uncontrollably. An unease sprouted in Enshli's stomach. He staggered towards them, trying to rein Pyru back before it was too late. But it already was too late. The mother bear had noticed where her cub had gone, and at the same time, she noticed both the father and son next to it. Normally, she would just intimidate them a little to scare them off, and only if they didn't fall back would she attack. But this was not a normal time. Her mind was still in a frenzy, and she could not think straight. The only concern she had was for her cub's safety, and only that of her cub. All that approached it would be deemed a danger, and they would all feel her wrath and be treated as another foe in her trail of indiscriminate destruction. And just like that, she careened forward, her boiling rage as intense as ever. Being in a cave, Enshli knew that there was nowhere to run. His son hadn't sensed the danger. Blissfully ignorant, he continued patting the cub's silky hide. Enshli resolved himself. It was do or die now. It was fight and not flight. So he sought help from his fire. Holding a blazing torch in each hand, he faced the mother bear head on. Every second seemed to stretch on for eternity as the distance between them closed. Enshli could feel the rapid thumping in his chest and the trail of sweat rolling down his neck. 10 meters. 6 meters. 4 meters. 2. By now, the mother was already in front. She reared up, preparing to bring down a full force of her right arm. But Enshli struck first. Without a second thought, he plunged both torches into her belly. The flame ravaged her fur, turning everything it touched into a circle of pitch black and shortly sizzled out in a flurry of smoke. The mother bear bellowed in pain, but it wasn't so easily defeated. After a slight pause, her arm swung down. Fast and hard, Enshli tried to dodge, but even with his best efforts, his left shoulder was still caught in a brutal attack. And with that, it was smashed to smithereens. Enshli collapsed. Instantly, he felt a small figure hugging his leg. He looked back and saw Pyru, trembling and quivering, with fountains of tears streaming down his rosy cheeks. "Papa!" he cried out. "Papa!" And this was all the motivation Enshli needed. With a grunt, he used his remaining hand to get to his knees, teetered over to the fireplace, and grabbed another burning branch. Again, the mother bear was upon him. She raised her arm once more. Without giving Enshli a window to strike, her paw flew downwards. Enshli's mind screamed for him to dodge, but his body didn't comply. As the paw came crashing down onto his chest, his innards were reduced to a bloody mess, and he was slammed into the wall. But Enshli didn't black out. He couldn't. Not here, not now. His eyes swirled with a wild murkiness, and overwhelming waves of wrath and bloodlust tumbled and crashed within. He let out a bellowing roar, and was so mighty it shook the heavens, and so fearsome it sent spasms of panic into every foe it crashed into. It was a primal roar, something one would only make in a paroxysm of pure rage. And with that, he leaned out and rammed his fiery weapon straight into the face of the mother bear. It burned and burned, refusing to die out as if inspired by Enshli's dauntlessness. The mother bear staggered back, scraping at her face. This pain seemed to bring her back to her senses. In the far corner of her eye, she noticed that her cub was already out of the cave and had wandered off. With one last grunt, she turned back and hurtled after it. Finally victorious, Enshli sagged onto the floor. His breathing became shallow. Anxious and afraid, Pyro shook him as hard as he could, begging him to get up. Enshli struggled to form a sound around his trembling lips. With a sigh, he reached forward to caress him. "It's all right," he thought. "You're safe now." With the last of his efforts, he wrapped his arms around him. Beside him, his torch flickered out. And there they were, father and son, a tale as old as time.